Our next conversation shines a spotlight on a powerful shift in financial services, building products for communities whose values have long been underserved. From Sharia-compliant mortgages and investments to ethical screenings and cross-border capabilities, neobanks like Manzil are rewriting the rules of what inclusive finance can look like. Here to explore how faith-aligned ethical finance can scale with trust, transparency, and growth potential, in conversation with BetaKid reporter Josh Scott, please join me in welcoming the founder and CEO of Manzil, Dr. Mohammed Sawaf. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Mohammed, it's great to chat with you again. We were speaking just last week because you hit a pretty big milestone recently.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
So for those of you who don't know, Manzil recently hit 100 million Canadian in total halal mortgages provided. They've served now over 240 Muslim Canadian households, giving them the financing they need to buy homes after doubling in less than a year. BetaKit broke the news earlier this week, and the story has blown up since then. I think it's a clear reflection of the amount of interest in what you're doing, but I think it's also maybe indicative of kind of the lack of competition in the space. And if we talk about your wait list, maybe how far we still have to go. But maybe, Mohammed, just to start, tell us a bit more about what this milestone means to you.
Yeah, and thanks very much, Josh, for that wonderful intro and for covering the story. You know, the milestone is beyond just a number. I think it really it's a number for the community, right? I think the community that we've been working with has been yearning for a sustainable solution like ours. You know, I could tell you that Islamic finance really goes back upwards of 40 years in Canada, but really not in a sustainable manner. And so our focus has always been, how do we find something that's sustainable, that's affordable, that's available across the country to enable home ownership for this demographic group?
Right. I think it's actually maybe, I was going to give an intro of kind of halal finance, but I think this actually might be a good kind of case study. Tell me maybe a bit more about how you built your mortgage product specifically to help, on the one hand, Muslim Canadians build wealth, but also maintaining basically their ethical and spiritual obligations. And then I guess the other component is how you've made it sustainable. Help us maybe paint a picture of how you've built this.
So there's two main models that are pretty well known within the Islamic banking system. One is called murabaha, or cost plus, and the other one is musharaka, or partnership. And you know, murabaha is very simple. You're purchasing the asset at a certain price, which is the market price, and because the client doesn't have the cash available, we just resell it at a higher price with the ability to have installments over a certain amount of time. So, you know, for example, if you wanted to go into the market and pay $500,000 for a condo, we would step in with that purchase. We then take that, we'll put a profit of, you know, let's say 5 or 6% on it. We calculate what that profit would be over the next 25 years, up to 25 years, up to the client. And then we'd take that number and say, okay, well, let's add all of that back to that 500. And so maybe it ends up at 750. And we sell it back to the client for 750. And we say, give us 25 years worth of $2,500 a month payments, right? And then it's pretty easy. It's a trade-based transaction. On the partnership side, think of it as we're coming in with our financing, you're coming in with your down payment, and every month we're selling you our share of the equity of the home so that ours over time decreases. You know, if we start at 80-20, you're going from 20 to 100, we're going from 80 to 0, and after 25 years, you have full ownership of the home vis-a-vis buying out our shares over a particular period of time of your choice.
Right. Okay. I think that's a helpful at least example of what that looks like in what halal finance looks like in practice. So on the BetaKit podcast a few years ago, you discussed some of the cultural, regulatory, and compliance roadblocks that have been slowing you down. Obviously, getting here has taken a lot of work. I'm curious, now that you're at 100 million, at least on the mortgage side, would you say, like, are some of the financial institutions that maybe ignored you a bit more before now more interested in doing business with Manzil? Has this milestone kind of shifted the conversation, or has it maybe been more of a continued case of those sort of goalposts being moved down the road?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I think it also lends into the previous question that you asked about like sustainability. When we first came into the market, obviously we went to all of the financial institutions and said, "Hey, we have a very big market that's been underserved, underbanked." Josh didn't mention this, but we do have a $10 billion wait list still, and it grows by $100 million a month, and yet we've only been able to attract and deploy 100 million. So there's a massive gap there. And so we went to them, we said, we have product market fit, we have demand, we really only need capital to finance this program. And they all just came and said, this is too new for us, which equals risk. We don't want to be market leaders or first, go find somebody else to do it first, and then, maybe you can talk to us. And we had no proof points. So what we decided to do is we said, okay, listen, like I have a retail financial advisory background. I used to sell funds all day. I said, let's introduce a mortgage fund that the community could participate in, because there was also a lack of Sharia compliant fixed income funds. And so we designed and developed the first Sharia compliant fixed income fund available actually in North America. It's not available in the US, but there isn't anything like it either. And so we said, okay, well, this is a two-in-one solution. Instead of people, wanting 0% in their savings account, put it into this fund. We'll deploy it into these halal mortgages, generate a return, and then that became kind of the proof point for these FIs, which then allowed for an increase in conversation. I would also mention, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but last year's budget piece, the spring budget in 2024, where the halal mortgage consultation process that was introduced, that we led, that also sent a signal, right, to Bay Street and by the government, the federal government, saying, we think we're okay with this. If you want to look at it, it's fine too, right? Because there was always this back and forth between the banks and saying, well, what does the government think about this? Is there a framework in place? And we said, well, we don't know. Like, we're talking to them, and we're having conversations, but there's no framework, even within the regulators, right? So these are all things that we're continually advocating for. I would say it has gotten better, but it's still very slow.
Okay, that's good to hear. I guess maybe that might actually be a good transition to talking a little bit about the work you're doing in the U.S. You made an acquisition last year of Agaz Investments that basically paved the way for your expansion into the U.S. You've started rolling out some capabilities on the investing side in the U.S. Help me get a sense of, or help us get a sense of kind of what it's been like building in the U.S. compared to Canada, and maybe some of the differences you've seen, be it on the general business side, on the regulatory front, maybe culturally.
Yeah, so now that we are in the US, it's no longer an anecdote, I would say. I can certainly compare and contrast the ease of business in the US, the speed at which businesses run, and even regulators. So whether we're licensed or seeking a new license, like the SEC is very engaging. They have seen this stuff before. So they do have, let's call it, internal guidelines or frameworks that they've created. And at the end of the day, I think the sentiment in the US is, if you're here to make money and be within the rules, as we say in Arabic, ahlan wa sahlan, like welcome, right? Like, we're happy to have you. Whereas in Canada, and we've heard this, like I just saw the last 3 sessions, there's a constant theme of, what, this is new. We don't want to innovate. Innovation equals risk, which then there's no competition, right? We keep this oligopolistic structure, and hence there's no evolution within kind of our financial markets here. I would argue the fact that we're not really a capitalistic or a free market society as the U.S. is, and we're certainly seeing it. We can launch new products much quicker. We can attract licenses much quicker. Whereas in Canada, you're looking at anywhere between a 3 to 5 year cycle whether it be licenses or any new product that you're trying to launch.
Okay. Maybe on the U.S. Kind of on the U.S. front, related to that, you've told me before that you hope to build Manzil into, and I quote, the North American Islamic neobank. Tell me maybe a bit more about going back to what I mentioned in my intro, like the competitive landscape as you see it today, and kind of maybe just the opportunity you see for Manzil to play here.
Yeah, so there are monoline product and services within the Islamic banking space. So are there mortgage institutions that are strictly halal? Yes, both sides of the border. Are there people just doing investments? Yes. Are some of them digitally enabled? Yes, most of them aren't. So the opportunity that we saw is like, how do we create a multi-product, multi-service platform that truly takes care of the individual from cradle to grave? Whether it be a savings account, a checkings account, maybe there's car financing, which we would love to introduce. There's obviously home ownership, which is a big issue in North America these days. Investments, retirement planning, estate planning, these are all the things that we think about, that we care about, especially in a Western society where our peers are doing it and we're saying, well, there isn't anything that's aligned within our faith that allows us to do it, and we don't want to have to compromise. So we look at ourselves as the ability to move or shift people that financially exclude themselves into financial inclusion, whether they are unbanked or underbanked to start with, or even if they are completely banked but they've compromised, they can now shift and have that feeling of peacefulness or rest at night, knowing that they've created a halal financial lifestyle. And it's not just an opportunity of like, well, there's 2 million Muslims in Canada, and there's 4 or 5 million Muslims in the States. So 7 to 10 is the range. It's kind of unconfirmed. We look at it even broader than that, right? Like there's an ethical market out there that is attracted to our product shelf. One example I always like to give everybody is that not only is Canada the last G7 country to adopt any sort of Islamic banking framework, but I always look towards what the UK has done. The UK in 2003 under the FCA created a whole Islamic banking regulatory framework. And they said Islamic banks can come and be here side by side with the conventional banks. And now we're giving optionality to the consumer. No different how UK led the charge on open banking in 2019, as Andrew Spence had mentioned previously. And so when you think about the British Islamic Bank, formerly known as the British Islamic Bank, which is now called Arayan Bank, upwards of 40% of their clients are non-Muslim. And so these products have nothing to do with religion. It's about ethics, transparency. Maybe the pricing was better. Maybe the affordability was better. Maybe that bank gave it to them and the other ones. That's when you survey these consumers, that's what they come up with as answers. It has nothing to do with, well, because it adheres to my faith. Yes, that is a component for our demographic group, but not for the broader one. And so I don't see why Manzil can't just be the Islamic fintech or neobank of North America, but also the ethical one.
I think this is a good point. Let's unpack that vision a bit more and maybe where you are in terms of delivering it. Because obviously we started talking about mortgages, as you noted, and as we've covered, like that vision on the product side involves a lot more than just mortgages. Tell us a bit more about kind of where you are today, what you offer versus what you'd hope to bring to the table down the road.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in Canada, we tackled, I would like to say, like the hardest problem first, which was this whole piece around home ownership. It's super capital intensive. Like as you mentioned, like $100 million, and we've only supported 240 families, right? Like we're averaging a $400,000 or $500,000 ticket per mortgage, but there are thousands. There's 20,000 families on our wait list, right? How do you get through thousands and thousands of people? And that requires billions of dollars, which we're totally capable of deploying. It's just really who's going to facilitate that partnership from a capital perspective to enable that. We extended that product to add Manzil Realty as a service provider, right? Because what we found was there was a lack of education and awareness within the real estate community, realtor community, about, well, what is a halal mortgage? Why do I have to introduce covenants or terms into an agreement of purchase and sale in order for Manzil to participate in this program as a financing partner? And so we introduced that to say, well, hey, we're going to take care of you, because 80% of our clients on the mortgage program are new first-time home buyers. They're new purchasers. This is the first time they've ever done this. So we'll hold your hand from a service perspective through Manzil Realty. You get the financing approved by Manzil, and then it's a one-stop shop. With the Manzil Mortgage Fund, we saw a greater opportunity within the Manzil Invest space to say, well, we're providing fixed income, but why aren't we supporting that with equity funds, right? So, and there's a bunch of equity ETFs that are out there. So we said, well, why don't we add that to diversify the offering for clients? And we wrapped it around a robo, so people can just basically download the app and within 5 minutes be able to open up an account and invest that is aligned with their faith. And then we extended that further into Manzil Wealth as a service to say, well, people are asking us about financial planning, retirement planning, tax planning. Like, they want somebody to speak to because maybe they have had an advisor, or they're maybe a high net worth, so they're more up the value chain, and they need that advice attached to basically make the right decisions with their investment plan. So we added Manzil Wealth. And then, you know, the tertiary, the third and final product, at least on the Canadian side, is that estate planning solution. Like, what happens when you leave this world, and how does your children, your family, or beneficiaries inherit this according to the faith? And so establishing Manzil Wills as a fully digital online will program that kind of integrates all of these products that you have in one format and all centralized was really kind of you know, wrapping the package in a nice red bow. On the US side, we did a little bit of a reverse. We said, listen, the mortgage market there's high barriers to entry. There's a lot of things that need to be done based on experience and based on kind of our research. Not that we're not going to go into the market with that product, we certainly will, but through the acquisition of Agaz, we saw that as a very easy barrier to overcome and enter the market fully licensed under the SEC through 50 states. And we said, let's now introduce the Manzil Invest, Manzil Wealth program first, and then see what other products that we can launch thereafter. And so, you know, the up-and-coming products on the US side will be a suite of ETFs that we're launching. And if we go back to kind of, you know, your last sentiment around, you know, the banks and regulations, like, I can tell you that we started you know, this ETF mandate in June, and by August we had a filing in, and we're expecting that, you know, a launch date of November. I've been talking to market makers for the last 3 or 4 years in Canada about this mandate, and they're just hemming and hawing still and saying, well, maybe, and, you know, come back to us, and the Islamic ETF market has certainly developed. So, you know, just as another example of kind of the ease of use or ease of business between the two markets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, I think that paints a pretty fulsome picture. There's certainly a lot more we could talk about, but I've got to wrap things up shortly. Maybe let's return a bit to the conversation, the Canada versus US conversation. As you've noted, you've told me doing business in the US and in a lot of ways for what you're doing is a bit easier, but you said you're still long on Canada despite this. Give us some quick thoughts on why you're still a believer and that Canada can be a leader in this space, and Canada overall.
Listen, Canada's home. I was born and raised here. I'm heavily embedded in the community, and I look at this as a responsibility. Like, our team looks at it as a responsibility that we need to provide these services and products back to our country. And, you know, having over 10,000 people using any one of our products, that's not enough. There's 2 million Canadians out there representing 5% of the population. It's growing to 3 million. So we still see that this is very much a large opportunity that we haven't fulfilled, and we're only scratching the surface.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I think that's a great place to close this out.
Thanks very much, Josh.